there is a West Wilson dick pic going around. Kyle saw it. Jesse saw it. Every man at this reunion has seen it. And before Amanda and West even walked onto that Bravo stage, their situation was already more embarrassing than anyone anticipated. But here is the thing about the Summer House Season 10 Reunion Part 3. The dick pic is not even the most explosive thing that comes out tonight. Not even close. Because after 2 full hours of promises with no apology, the final hour of the most watched Bravo reunion in years is about to give everyone what they came for. And it is not what anyone expected. Stop right there. Because before we get into what happens on that couch, you need to know what happened in those dressing rooms on April 23. Because the backstage moments tell you everything about who came to this reunion ready to heal and who came ready to perform. Andy Cohen paid a visit to Ciara in her dressing room and asked her directly, "Who do you feel more betrayed by?" Ciara responded, "Amanda. I mean, I'm shocked by West, but I'm also really hurt by Amanda. Aol more betrayed by Amanda, not West, the man who kissed her and pursued her all summer and then went straight to her best friend. Ciara is more hurt by the woman she trusted for 6 years, because that is what 6 years of friendship does to the math of betrayal. It makes the person you loved more responsible for the wound than the person you barely knew." Wait, stop. Think about what that answer means. West is the villain of this story to everyone watching, but Ciara just told Andy Cohen the villain of her personal story is Amanda. And that distinction, that specific direction of pain, is the thing that makes this reunion different from every other Bravo scandal. Meanwhile, in the boys' dressing room, the conversation had taken a very different turn. Kyle exclaimed, "It's not a good dick pic." Jesse chimed in, "Who does it flaccid?" Aol, Kyle Cook, and Jesse Solomon, 2 men who had their trust completely shattered by West Wilson, standing in a dressing room making jokes about his unsolicited photograph making the rounds. And somehow that image, those 2 men laughing instead of crying before the most emotionally devastating television they will ever film, is the most human thing this entire reunion has produced. And if you have ever had to laugh about something painful just to get through the room, Kyle and Jesse in that dressing room is that exact moment. Andy then visited Amanda and West in their shared dressing room. Amanda told him the truth is already out there. It's just going to be shutting down the rumors. As for seeing Ciara, Amanda said, "I mean, there's a lot of guilt. That's my friend, and it kills me that I'm the one that caused her any pain. Aol kills me," her words. And yet, she is sharing a dressing room with the man who helped cause that pain. Calm, composed, ready to shut down rumors, not ready to apologize. Stay right here. Because what Dara Levitan says directly to West's face in the final hour is the thing that the entire cast has been holding back since April 23. Here is the speech that broke the internet. Not Ciara's, not Kyle's, not Lindsay's. Dara Levitan, the quietest, steadiest voice in this entire cast, walked onto that reunion stage and said the thing that every person in that room was thinking but could not say without it looking personal. Dara told Amanda directly, "It will always be the West show. He doesn't prioritize treating the women he's linked to romantically with the same respect he does anybody else. I foresee him for a very long time wanting someone who will mold and fold and fit into his life without excuse or complaint. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide what's worth sacrificing for that kind of person." Bravo TV mold and fold. Those 2 words. Said to a woman sitting next to the man being described, in front of millions of viewers. Not as an attack, as a warning. From someone who has watched West operate across multiple seasons and has no personal score to settle. Okay, I am going to say something controversial right now. Dara saying it is more powerful than Ciara saying it, because Ciara has every reason in the world to warn Amanda about West. Dara has none. And when a person with nothing to gain looks you in the eye and describes your relationship with that kind of specificity, that is not shade. That is the truth in its purest form. Before Amanda returned to the stage, Dara told West directly, "You treat the women who give themselves to you like they're expendable. Bravo TV expendable." One word. And West sat there. And the room went quiet. And if you have ever been described accurately by someone who barely knows you and felt that specific kind of exposure that comes from being seen by a stranger, West Wilson in that moment is the face of exactly that. Lindsay told Amanda directly, "He's definitely going to do it to you." Bravo TV, meaning what he did to Ciara, what he did to Maja, the pattern, the pivot, the performance of care that disappears the moment it is no longer useful. And Amanda wiped away tears. West held her hand. and the entire cast watched and said nothing out loud, because everything that needed to be said had just been said. Do not move. Because what Kyle admits about his own marriage in the final hour is the moment this entire reunion becomes about something bigger than the scandal. Nobody expected Kyle to be the one who said this. Kyle Cook admitted he'd acted inappropriately while they were married. Amanda argued he had stepped out of the marriage. Bravo TV right there, on the reunion stage, in front of the entire cast and everyone watching. The man who spent 3 parts calling West fraudulent and phony admitted that the marriage had its own breaks before West ever entered the picture. That he was not without fault. That the story of this marriage is not as simple as betrayal and innocence. Wait, stop. This admission changes the entire framing of what we have been watching for 3 parts. Not because it excuses what Amanda did, but because Kyle chose honesty over the cleaner and easier version of this story. And that choice, in a room full of people performing, is the most genuinely brave thing anyone did in that entire building. The reunion addressed Kyle's history of outbursts towards Amanda. 2 things can be true at once. Scamanda does not negate Kyle's behavior during their marriage. Bravo TV, both things true at once. The betrayal happened and the marriage was already broken. The lie was real, and the relationship it ended was already cracking. That is not a defense of Amanda and West. That is the full picture. And the full picture is always messier and more honest than the headline. When Kyle spoke about Jesse, he praised that Jesse was putting himself out there more than 99% of people he knows. Before the camera cut sharply to Amanda and West, Bravo TV that cut, that single editorial decision, praising a man for genuine vulnerability, and then cutting to the couple who performed theirs, said more than any line of dialogue could. Stay right here. Because Ciara drops the line of the entire reunion in the final hour, and it is the most quotable moment in Summer House history. 1 sentence. That is all it took. Amanda was criticizing Lindsay and Carl for doing a sponsored Uber Eats ad called Carl's a Mess, making a point about monetizing personal struggles, about dignity, about not turning your pain into content. Amanda Batula, on a Bravo reunion, after an entire season of being filmed, criticizing someone else for monetizing their narrative. Ciara responded immediately, "You would never monetize something, but you would sleep with your friend's ex?" Bravo TV. The room stopped. Andy Cohen stopped. America stopped. I am not even joking. I had to read that sentence 3 times before I could process it. Because it is not just a comeback, it is a verdict. It is 6 years of friendship, 1 season of lies, and 1 March 31 Instagram statement compressed into 16 words. Okay, I'm going to say something that might upset some fans. That line is not just the best line of this reunion. It is one of the best lines in Bravo history. Because it did not just respond to what Amanda said, it used Amanda's own logic against her. You care about dignity? You care about what people monetize? Let's talk about what you actually traded. And Amanda, who had an answer for everything else at this reunion, had no response to that. And if you have ever been in an argument where someone said the one sentence that ended the conversation completely, Ciara's 16 words in that moment are the reality TV version of that exact feeling. West was visibly uncomfortable. The cast was visibly processing. And Andy Cohen's face said everything that could not be said out loud on a Bravo stage. Stay right here. Because the racial conversation Ciara has in the final hour is the one that the entire cast and every viewer needed to hear. Here is the moment that elevated this reunion beyond reality TV drama. Ciara addressed the racial dynamics directly. She said, Amanda and West were using buzzwords of I see you, I hear you to satiate maybe what I needed to hear, but they didn't really see or hear me. She also said, I just hit the point where I was like, I'm not going to sugarcoat things anymore. There are a lot of racial dynamics that happen in this group. That's a part of having interracial relationships, interracial friendships, intercultural relationships, and friendships. Bravo TV, I see you, I hear you. Those words, used by 2 people who were simultaneously building a secret relationship behind her back. Words chosen specifically for Ciara, specific to her experience, used not to actually see her or hear her, but to keep her calm while she was being managed. Wait, stop! Think about what it means to have the language of your pain weaponized against you. To have someone use the specific vocabulary of care that you need, and use it as a tool to control your perception of a situation. That is not just a betrayal between friends. That is a specific and deliberate kind of harm. KJ compared West to his estranged father, a moment that broke hearts across the cast. Bravo TV KJ Dillard, the first black male cast member in Summer House history, who spoke to Ebony magazine about the pressures of that role and his mental health journey, who sat on that couch and told West that what he did reminded him of his own father's abandonment, and West, who said in part 1 that KJ was not directly impacted, had to sit there and hear the full weight of what that statement actually meant. And if you have ever been told your pain was not relevant to someone else's situation, and then had to explain in a room full of people exactly why it was, KJ on that reunion couch is speaking for every person who has ever had to justify their hurt to someone who caused it. Do not go anywhere, because what happens between Kyle and Amanda after the cameras stop rolling is the ending nobody was ready for. 10 hours of filming. 10 hours of confrontation, tears, of accountability, and the most emotionally exhausting television this cast has ever made. And then it ended. And Kyle Cook found Amanda Batula backstage. Kyle embraced Amanda after the 10-hour filming session. He tearfully told her, "Our 10-year relationship gets talked about as if it was 100% bad. All not 100% bad. A decade, real complicated, and being reduced by everyone watching, including sometimes by Kyle himself, to a scandal and a betrayal headline. I am not even joking. This moment broke people on social media. Not because it was explosive, because it was the most unexpectedly human thing that happened in that building all day. A man who called Amanda's partner fraudulent, who admitted his own failures, who spent 10 hours in the most painful conversation of his life, chose to end it with a hug. That is not weakness. That is someone who loved a person for 10 years and cannot simply switch that off because a reunion ended. And if you have ever ended something long, something real, and had the world only remember the way it fell apart instead of everything it was, Kyle Cook in that hallway hug is the moment this reunion stopped being a Bravo special and started being something true. Lindsay said that Carl is finally the person he is supposed to be and always wanted to be. Carl and Lindsay are taking real steps forward in mending their friendship. Bravo TV quietly, without cameras making it dramatic. Two people who hurt each other choosing to keep the door open. And in the middle of the loudest reunion Bravo has ever produced. That quiet choice is the most hopeful thing anyone did all night. Stay right here. Because the way this entire story ends, and what Ciara Miller walks into next, is the ending the universe wrote better than any producer could. Here is how the Summer House Season 10 reunion actually ends. Not with a clean apology that healed everything. Not with a love confession that justified the chaos. Not with a friendship restored or a verdict handed down by Andy Cohen. It ends with one woman walking out of the most painful chapter of her public life, directly into the next biggest one. Summer House's Ciara Miller has been named new host of Love Island Aftersun. While Amanda and West are still answering questions about entanglements on a Bravo couch, Ciara just got a nationally televised hosting job. While the reunion was still airing in real time, her next chapter was already announced. The universe did not just give Ciara a win, it gave her a win on the same timeline as the people who hurt her. So they had to watch it happen too. Yahoo! Jesse Solomon said the reunion was worse than he expected. He had hoped to leave there and find a little common ground, maybe be able to repair things. But it didn't feel that way. All worse than expected. From West's closest friend. Not from an enemy. Not from someone with a reason to be harsh. From the man who cared most about whether this group survived, and who left that building feeling like it did not. And if you have ever wanted a situation to end better than it did, and sat in the aftermath of it knowing that some things cannot be repaired by having the right conversation, Jesse Solomon in those words is the most honest voice at this entire reunion. Amanda does not think she did anything wrong. She is barely apologizing or taking accountability because she knows that is what everyone wants to see. And it is not because she means it. Reality T 3 parts, 6 hours, the most talked about Bravo reunion since Vanderpump Rules Scandival. And the apology that was promised in the very first minute in front of Andy Cohen, the entire cast, and millions of viewers never fully arrived in the way Ciara and Kyle deserved. And that is the real ending of this reunion. Not what was said, what was withheld, the words that were promised and never fully delivered, the accountability that was performed instead of felt, the 6 years of friendship that ended not with a conversation, but with an Instagram statement that did not even say their names. Ciara came in furious. She left with a hosting deal, the best line in Bravo history, and her dignity intact. Kyle came in heartbroken. He left having been more honest than anyone in that building. Amanda came in with a promise she could not fully keep. And West came in zen and left with a pattern that every person in that room named out loud before the cameras stopped rolling. Subscribe right now, because season 11 decisions are already being made. Who comes back? Who walks away? And what happens to Amanda and West when the Bravo spotlight finally moves on? Hit subscribe and be the first to know. This story is not over.